welcome back to Panther News. Tonight's segment is about gender bias in negotiations, a topic that's affected millions, especially in the workplace. We have Anna here, who has spent a lot of time researching this issue. Anna, are you able to give us a little history on this topic?
Thank you, Vilma. I'm glad to be here today with you guys to be able to share with you guys some history on this topic and give you some insight as to the effects that it's having on today's society. First, I just wanted to start us off by saying some piece of information that I recently read that I thought was really interesting and relevant to today's conversation. I read that it's going to take society about 136 years to be able to actually reach gender equality. We've had this problem for a long time, and clearly we still have a long way to go. But this issue didn't just pop up overnight. It's been ingrained in us since our childhood and throughout generations. It's part of cultural norms, and it's what society expects, and it's part of these gender stereotypes. Throughout history, when we're young, boys are told to play rough games, while women are generally told to play more communal and cooperative games. And these are stereotypes that have been passed down from generation to generation. And it's really when we're adults that we're really ingrained in these gender roles. And it's said that kids really learn this stuff by the time that they're 4 or 5 years old. They're already learning about these gender roles and they already know it and practice them. In negotiations, women often get accused of being accommodating, while guys are supposed to be like more assertive and confident. Guys are also assumed to be more straight shooters. Men usually get labeled as confident, which works in their favor, but women often face a perception that they're less confident, which holds them back. It really doesn't matter if men and women fit into these stereotypes. It just affects their opportunities. These stereotypes and expectations really mess with how men and women perceive themselves and act in negotiations. It can also mess with their careers and personal lives. Basically, this gender equality problem isn't going away anytime soon, and it's going to take a while to solve, thanks to a mix of cultural norms, stereotypes, and societal expectations around gender that have been around forever and have been passed down from generations. And basically, it's really affecting how people handle negotiations and their overall success in these. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and back to you, Vilma.
That was quite the history lesson, Anna. Thank you. Next up, we have Lamar, who has also studied the effects of gender bias in negotiations. Lamar, what are a few things to consider when talking about negotiations and gender bias?
How you doing? My name is Lamar Jackson, and I will be going over things to consider on our paper, bans versus women in the negotiation field. And basically, we've been talking about as viewing as women as passive and men as more dominant. It causes a divide in how each gender approach the negotiation field. And we're saying that they basically put us in a box, and it limits the opportunity for people to truly be themselves and show them what they're worth when we have to divide it between women and men. And taking these things into account, we should always consider how both women and men use their outlooks to their advantage in the negotiation field. Like women is more, like I said, are more passive and men are more dominant. So women have to prove themselves in the negotiation field. They have to go hard, have to do this, have to do this. Men's, we basically going in like we know everything when we come to the table. And according to Charles B. Carver, men and women who expect their female adversaries to be less, they can't compete against us. And we have that mind frame. And we often ignore the reality of their negotiation encounters. And this aspect provides a significant bargaining advantage to women. And they are willing to employ different type of tactics to prove themselves they are best. And And I think this is what we have to do in the negotiating field between men and women. I mean, we have to prove ourselves. And thank you, and I hope you enjoy.
Those were some good points, Lamar. Now we have Natalia, who has some insight on recommendations that could be used when dealing with negotiations and gender bias. Natalia, what are the recommendations that you suggest?
Thank you, Vilma, for having me here today. We're going to be talking a little bit about ways of rectifying gender bias in negotiation. I'd first like to say that it is very important to implement educational programs that help recognize when gender bias is an issue at hand. Someone that has done some work in the field and continues to counteract this phenomenon. Her name is Professor Suzanne Janaz. She leads a workshop in a high school in Virginia with female leadership, and she is working with them to help even out any gender bias that can exist. And she's empowering these women to make them have a voice and also fight for equality. By amplifying these leadership programs, these are going to hold leaderships in the future more accountable to realizing when gender bias is occurring. So I'd like to go over some 5 pro tips that we can use because we might be in a situation where we're experiencing gender bias. So 5 great pro tips that we can use. Number 1, know your worth. For example, if you're going to go in for a job interview, it's important that you know the average salary for the profession that you're applying for. Know what your unique abilities are, what you bring to that table, and what your net worth is, despite the gender or background you may have. Number 2, confidence. Project confidence. Speak clearly. Be assertive. This is going to help you in any situation where you might be experiencing some gender bias. Number 3, highlight your highlights. Emphasize your accomplishment. Don't be scared to boast. Use examples of how you have brought something to amplify the situation, or maybe your company has. Highlight the things that you have accomplished, and that will also open up the bargaining table in any negotiation situation. Number 4, practice active listening. We don't know how important this is. It is so important to pay close attention to the concerns of the other party. Really get to know what they need. Don't just worry about the physical. Think about what the problem at hand is and how we can listen and be in tune to each other to find a win-win situation. And the last one, number 5, advocate for change. Be the catalyst. Be the one that steps forward and says, we have to fight for equality. Be the leader, fight for inclusion, and promote diversity. If you're a company owner, hire diversity. Hire both men and women. Empower them as well and educate them. I hope that these pro tips has helped and that you too will be part of this movement to end gender bias in negotiation. Thank you very much. Back to you, Vilma.
Wow, Natalia, those were very insightful. I want to thank you and our other guests, Anna and Lamar, for coming and joining tonight's episode. I hope all you viewers enjoy this new segment and are able to implement the information to your everyday life. Better leadership and advocating for oneself are just a few steps to achieving gender equality. That is all we have for you tonight. From Panther News, I'm Vilma, and have a great night.